So just waiting for more people to join in, but by the time they join in, why don't we save time? And we thought, well, let's start the discussion. We've had this discussion many a time, but every time it feels so relevant and important to discuss this as to how do we communicate when it comes to science and technology, and why should we communicate? Why should we have a discussion at all? And why should we really take it forward? Because whatever is being done, which is such a huge landscape, as I said, of the scientific development and research happening, we are in the RISE conclave, where we are talking about research, innovation, the industry, academia, the society, the students, the scientific community, all have come together here. So all the stakeholders are here, we're talking about integration, but then how do we really come together and take it ahead the next step where the common people, the humanity also gets to know as to what's in for them and how it's happening, for the progress and development for all of us. What is very, very significant to note that we are traveling, we have had a journey, but the journey continues. No. How do we really make it a part of our everyday understanding and application? That's what we are talking about today in the science communication discussion. I'm going to talk to Chetan, who's from Times of India, and ask him, Chetan, much is being done. We are seeing that how, science actually has not only come of age, but how it is being spread all over. We are seeing much in social media, talk about, CSIR itself, the one lab, one theme kind of projects, and continuing still. One is on social media, we are watching so much happening. We are here at NAL, which saw some significant projects. How do you really see the media, the mainstream media, making it happen in terms of being an active participant?
Thanks. Yeah, I think, am I audible? I think it's working. So, the question about what role mainstream media plays in disseminating science. I think traditionally, if you look at science reporting across the world and why it assumes importance and the role that the mainstream media plays, there are a couple of critical things that we must look at first. One is to get to the basics. Any Hello, yeah. So for any society to be held, to have a mass that is thinking critically is essential. So for anybody to think critically, you need to have scientific temper. People often confuse scientific temper to be important only in the realm of scientists or researchers. But that's not the case. Kids are curious, and all human beings by nature, when you're born, by design you're curious. We lose that curiosity somewhere as we grow up. There are multiple factors that determine how we grow up and what kind of scientific temper we are able to retain as we grow older. So in that gap is what mainstream media tries to fill with science reporting. It's not about only about the kind of research. Yeah, it's not only about the research that's happening or the headline stories. For instance, India lands on moon, or India is the first country to go to Mars in the first attempt. These are all headline things, but there are a lot of science that happens in all of these big missions. And like you were pointing out, the kind of work CSIR does across its 50 plus labs in the country, the kind of work NAL has done. These are things that have double benefits when you try to communicate them. One is that how these institutions are part of. Yeah, sorry about the microphone. So when I say nation building, one shouldn't confuse that with the government or the industry. It is all in one whole of nation approach that we're talking about. They're not working in silos. So one is that how these institutions are part of nation building, and the second one, a more important one, is to kindle that kind of interest, especially among the young school-going, college-going population, so that they take up science. And even if they don't take up science, the idea is to speak about so many fascinations that science brings to you, right? A lot of us use technology without understanding the science behind it. Most. So globally, there's the top 1% that understands any technology truly while using. And the top 1% of that 1% is the one that's creating the technology. And all technology is applied, right? So it all has science in the background. Like you use a mixer at home, uh, it's the same thing that the science behind it is more or less similar to what Shubhanshu Shukla, Papa Nair do across here. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things you said, Chetan, is that how do you really take it to young people? I mean, there is a huge youth division that we have in our country, and how do we really tap that and make it work? I mean, so many students we interact with are very, very eager to join the scientific, journey. But how do they really understand the relevance of it all, and how do they really take it up, where it's not only something that they're going to study and make it good for their career, but also enjoy it while they learn. So, Abhinavji.
See, I come from the Week magazine, which is a general interest magazine. For general interest magazine, first of all, the aim is to simplify things. Basically, that's why, although we have a lot of information, scientific information available, this is very, very technical in some manner. So, the scientific information, many of the people, general people, don't understand what really means, because I was in some interaction with some students, and many of them didn't even know what a space station means. So they didn't even know. Even some engineering students also, they didn't know what is space. So basically, the aim is to de-jargonize, to make it more simple for students, for the larger general community. And how you can make it as a media is very, very important. How basically we can simplify things so that they understand and try to emulate, for example, docking. For example, two cars are running at a space docking, for example. How you relate that to common things on the earth. For example, two cars running at the same speed and just trying to create a linkages between those two cars at the same speed. That is what is happening in the space docking. So if you try to familiarize things in such a manner, and for example, a rocket. Many people know it's a PSLV rocket. They just don't know what kind of payloads go on top of it. But if you try to simplify things like these are the payloads, how it is important for the scientific community and the student community, then I think so the popularity of such kind of reporting, science reporting will, students will come to know, general public will come to know how important and relevant it is.
I know, and we are also talking about within the scientific community. Mr. G. Mahesh has not been able to join. Had he been here, then we would have really sought his views on this. But talking about some of the practical scenario, Chetan, how would you really look at it? We are talking about simplifying science, but what really happens, let's say, at a news desk? Take us through that, in the sense that sometimes we feel that it was such an important project one did, but it did not really get so much to the masses because the media could not take it up so well that is desired. So where is that again, the gap that one can fill? You have a mic or not? Please give him the mic.
So two things there. One, media taking it up or the lack of it, and what happens at the news desk. So it's not just science copies that fall through the cracks on any given day. Because just like everything else in the world, there are constraints in producing a newspaper. Space is a major constraint. So a lot of variables play in deciding what becomes part of your newspaper in tonight's edition and what can be held over for the next day and what needs to be dropped altogether. And they're not always a commentary on how good or bad the development is. Sometimes there are just so many things happening around the world that you will have to make that hard choice to say that whether or not we're able to cover this particular project or whether we should postpone it. And so far as simplification of science for the audiences is concerned, I think I find that there is a lot of mind block against science. It's not that science is always complicated. Even when you simplify, there is this mind block. People understand all the words in the sentence, I'll give you an instance. We were talking somewhere at a cafe. So we were talking about, and one of my friends, from the IT sector, is complaining about to the, stewardess that the coffee was not in the right temperature. Okay, and another colleague of mine, not a colleague, a friend who works in the corporate, he was talking about how he's most efficient, when the deadline is very close. And they were talking about all of these things, so I thought maybe I should do a dipstick study and find out. So they understand temperature, they understand efficiency, they understand protection, but you put all of this together and talk about a satellite and say, for the satellite to achieve the right kind of thermal protection, what are the things that have to work efficiently? The minute you say that, they say this is all very complex, I don't want to talk about it. So it's not that, I think there's a mind block in understanding science, and they don't want to make that effort. And as one of the flaws that I see in mass communication of science on social media or anywhere else is this over reliance on trying to drive home the application of something, and the science gets lost there. So people are not learning what is enabling. So if you want to see how the Tejas flies, you have to go back to 1983 when Professor Narasimha, who's not with us anymore sadly, wrote the first proposal of how you will make it using composites. And that was a part of science that India didn't understand at that time. And building something from there to having something that flies. So that science is the one that must be communicated, and that is the endeavor that we are in. At least I am trying to do that, and that I think will have a long-term effect on the audiences. They will understand that there is no engineering without science. You can't build a satellite without understanding science. Without mathematics and physics, there is no space program, there is no aircraft that flies, there is no mixer grinder that runs at home.
For that, we need the right mix, and for that, exactly and precisely that we need, experts, science communicators who know their job, and more of them. How do you think we reach that level?
See, basically, first of all, most important thing is that scientific community needs to come out. They can't work in silos, and they need to come out and communicate better with the media. And also come up, if there is some interesting project, they should come out openly and try to showcase their expertise in front of the media, and not keep on. Of course, some things are classified; they cannot be, of course, made public. But those things which can be made public, and how that invention or that innovation is going to help the common man, or basically what benefit it will have for the larger society. Those kind of things, I think, so should be highlighted by those innovations, and the scientist community should come together and try to showcase this in a very, very simplified manner. Of course, simplified means I am trying to stress on that because the landing of Chandrayaan 3 was one of the most sought after. Everyone actually, the country, everyone witnessed the landing. So it was popularized so much that India is trying to attempt it for the first time. But the popularization, that's why everyone stopped there, and then they watched on television, they watched on social media, the kind of appreciation which that Chandrayaan.
So I think the space lately has been getting a lot of
Lot of
attention,
yes.
and our honorable minister always says that space is getting a lot of space even within media and different
Of
platforms.
course, and Subhanshu Shukla, I had interviewed him for the cover story. So he was saying he wants to outreach maximum number of people, and how he's himself trying to, basically because he's getting questions about how from students that they also want to become an astronaut like him. So that is basically the reach and outreach he was himself trying to create, and to reach maximum number of people that no, it's not very difficult to become. You can become. So that is the power of media actually. How you can popularize things and how you can reach to the masses.
Schools, I mean, we are on social media.
Of course, social media is one of them, but I think so the larger, the popular newspapers, the popular magazines, the popular electronic media, all of them actually, they have to take interest also in showcasing these scientific things in a very, very, like, so that they can reach the masses in a very, very simplified manner, then masses will also have interest in it. But if you say, see what important it is what we should not showcase what the writer or the journalist likes. We should showcase what the reader wants. Basically, what the larger student community wants or larger general public
That's
wants.
just saying also from the media perspective, but
Yes,
let's
sir.
see it from the perspective of scientists.
Yes.
A lot of eminent scientists and very seniors are here. Uh, how does it happen that the essence of science, as you were saying, Chetan, also, and which is so important, which is so serious, how do we really translate it well? That's exactly why we are talking about it to the audience, that it reaches out, does not lose its flavor, but also carries home the message which is needed to be understood.
There's a very simple solution to that. See, most research happens in English. So there was a Nobel laureate who I was interviewing 8, 9 years ago, and he was saying that any science that I do, if my grandmother doesn't understand it, it's not science worth doing. He was exaggerating, obviously. But the trick, what I took back home from that is, see, whether you take traditional media or influencers or people who use social media or the general administrative service people or politicians, not everybody comes from a science background. So it may be difficult for them to grasp sometimes what scientists believe are even simple principles of subjects that they are dealing with. They have done work for 2 decades on it. So it is very simple to do. But the flip side is easier to be done. Scientists can speak in simple terms. They already know English. So the onus shouldn't be on the other side to learn science. So if science has to be translated effectively, it has to come from the lab. And there have been great mentors over the years, people who took time to help us understand things. So one of them that I should name, I've named one already, Professor Rodam Narasimha. The other one that I should name is Professor U.R. Rao. He's had 2 hour long chats with me in 2016 about how a satellite will reach the Lagrange point to understand the sun and what are India's plans, but the science part of it. So eventually when that took off in 2023 towards the end, I was in a great position to report that because there have been people like U.R. Rao who helped people understand science. And Professor Narasimha, if you look at a lot of his work at IISc, after his active research, he's played a great role in building NAL. A lot of his work at IISc revolved around studying the history of science, which is another important aspect that the academia must focus on, because there is a lot of things that happens in our labs, but not everything comes out. One is there has been there increasingly opaque systems, science being protected behind the high walls and everything has to be an announcement. So see how media also works or how any industry works. There's also a commerce aspect to it, right? Like if you've been in broadcast, you would understand that as good or important as something might be, and if you've been making efforts, if it's too much of effort for you to just get access to even a small detail, and yeah, and we're not talking about missions that are critical.
I think, no, what you're saying, I'll take it ahead in terms of we need to have more conversations, we need to have more dialogue, we need to talk a lot about what we have in mind, what is our vision, what we are trying to convey. So I'm talking about, we are at Rise and we're talking about research, industry, startup and entrepreneurship all coming together. That's where the convergence matters. And we need to explain what is it that we are doing, what is it that we are trying to do, what is our vision. And that's where I think this whole gap also gets a little addressed. He's talking about access, yes, access with more understanding and with more, in a limited manner maybe, but there has to be, I think, more room and more window to talk about things. Sometimes we think that, why talk so much? Let's be silent, because why things should go out much. But I think opening the room, the window, the doors is very, very important. And these conversations and dialogues will go a long way in clearing things and not making science look like a big elephant, but also make it very simple for everyone to not only understand, but work on, the particular, aspect of it all.